Hello, Brian.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad. Sorry. The fringe around my head.
Gotta like the glow. We're on our final session of the day. I don't know if we have anyone. We do have some participants in already, so we're gonna let everyone trickle in.
All right. Am I supposed to be able to see other speakers? I can't really.
You should be able to see myself and Tatiana, and then share your screen and everything. In this webinar format, the participants aren't we can unmute them, but that it would be individually unmuting participants.
Got it. Okay.
Brian, would you like to share yours? Yes.
Sorry, I'm
Feel
just
like we
the anticipation.
building it up. I feel like we should have some music going and everything. Actually, next time I do think I want some music.
There you
Whenever
go.
I'm a big baseball fan, and the walk-up music, I think that's a great idea. Or we should start every single meeting or every single class. So for those teachers that are already tuned into our session, do you start your classes with music? I used to always do it. My students said my music was cringy, and I was okay with that.
Wait, you had opening music for when you joined your class?
I always had music going for at all times, but when they walked in, I definitely always had some music going.
Awesome.
But again, I was told it was cringe, and I think that's when cringe was first coming out as something that was regularly used by students. So,
Is your top track that you walked into class with?
I tried doing a mix. Like I put top 40 on, and apparently top 40 isn't popular sometimes. Or I would put classical. I thought Taylor Swift was a win, but like at that time, I don't think that the Swifties were as strong. I don't know.
We should have played an AI generated Spaces EDU anthem.
There you go.
Yes,
Yeah.
Missed
yes.
opportunity.
Miss next
Fading anthem
time,
for the
next
summer.
time. All right. Well, to keep on schedule, Brian, shall we start? Do you want to also neat your the bottle that your water bottle is black, so when you put it in the air, it just disappears into that background there.
There we go. You can sort of see it depending on how the light hits it. There you
Yeah, magic tricks. I'll
go.
unmute my mic, but I'll let you get started there, Brian.
All right. Okay. Yeah, thanks for, sorry, I thought you were going to do an intro. Thank you for joining everyone. We're going to cover, uh, well, Spaces EDU. It's been around for 4 years now. That's pretty wild. So what's coming next? Over the course of this presentation, we're going to walk through some of those updates. So a little bit of housekeeping, and I think I'm directing that to you, Nat.
Absolutely. So a little bit of housekeeping here. I do want to keep things running smoothly for the next hour. And so I'd briefly go over some of our housekeeping items. Please use the chat for discussion and the Q&A for any questions that you have. Now, if you get the two mixed up and happen to ask a question in the chat or vice versa, absolutely no problem. We will survive. Please know that I'm working in the background. We'll be monitoring the chat and the Q&A. And then finally, today's session is recorded, and you will receive a follow-up email tomorrow with the recording and any pertinent links or resources mentioned within the session. Throwing it your way, Brian.
All right, so once again, welcome everyone. I can't see all the speakers in attendance, so I'm sure I've met some of you. But for those that I haven't met before, I'm Brian Carvalho. I'm the Director of Product here at Spaces EDU and My Blueprint. My role effectively aligns in two focus areas, and that's product management and design. But My job and effectively our mission is to critically understand our partners' needs to deliver products that hold real value and solve a meaningful problem. So I look to our partners to collect feedback and make sure that we're actually on the right track. At My Blueprint and SpacesEDU, we strive to create user-centered products that are both intuitive and inspired.
Thanks, Brian. Hello, I'm Natalie, and I'm Manager of Partner Success and Strategy here at SpacesEDU. One part of my role is that I get to lead an impressive team of success specialists who many of you have met today or in other times. And in turn, they work with district leadership teams on SpacesEDU implementation. So similarly, I also work directly with our district leaders, and I find great inspiration from learning from both my team and our partners. As a success team, being the voice of our partners is the most important aspect of our role. So through our meetings, our emails, our training sessions, phone calls, we get to hear what's going really well, sometimes what can be still improved. So all this information is shared, compiled, tracked, it's workshopped. And through today's session, you'll see how your voice has helped shape our starting point, where we are today, and where we're headed. On a personal note, as a former educator, I loved interacting with tech companies. I always did get reached out to, and I loved it. So when they reached out, even when time was scarce, I was so excited to share. And so this is what really makes me excited for today's session and for you to use your voice to celebrate wins and to continue shaping our future. Next slide there, Brian.
All right, so to kick things off, before we jump into the agenda for the session, we wanted to do a little bit of a warm-up with all of you. So if some of you have joined the product quarterly sessions in the past, we use this tool called Mentimeter. So for anybody in the crowd, if you could do me a favor and head over to www.menti.com and enter this code, or use the QR code if you're savvy with the camera, you can log in and you can join us. We have a couple warm-up questions to kick off the session, and then you're going to help us prioritize some updates that we have coming through the pipeline. So I'll give everyone a minute to do that. I'll do that on my end as well.
I always join in, Brian, as well, because I love capturing people's voices, and I like to get my own voice in there too. Sometimes I think you can
I've
tell
never
that it's
joined the
me.
sessions myself, but I think I'll do that today. I'll jump in. All right.
It's a party.
So, and if you haven't joined, once again, those instructions are up at the top, www.menti.com, and you can use the following code here, 66373351.
I see, Yvette, you say no spot to put a code. And thanks, Tatiana. I should have put that link in there. Yes, great. Yvette's in.
Perfect. Yvette, you're in? Awesome. All right, and the first question here, and I wanted to start off very slow, a bit of a silly question, but I had a little bit of an argument with my wife this morning that subsequently spilled into a cross-team discussion around what's your ideal toast color? What should your toast look like in the morning? Okay, we're all leaning towards the middle here. Nobody's venturing off into the burnt area here, the dark zone.
Yum.
All right, I'll move us on to the next question, and thank you for letting me know about your preferred colored toast. What is your teaching superpower? What is your teaching superpower? My husband's boss would lean to the right. There you go. Some people like their toast burnt. There's nothing wrong with that. Well, maybe just a little bit.
Love the variety. And I bet we could all just stack these into so many of our superpowers anyways, but I love giving them a call out.
We'll give people another half minute. Empathy, relationships, creativity, listening, tech, joy, and relationship building. And in many ways, all of these facets contribute to the story of how SpacesEDU came to be. So excited to start diving into that. There we go. I think my superpower, at least Natalie tells me my superpower is active listening. So being able to kind of distill this information into something meaningful. So I'm hoping that we can discuss that today. So let me dive into the agenda real quick. We're going to take a look at the year we've had together, some of the growth and milestones that we've experienced, and then we're going to take a step real back into 4 years ago to the inception of SpacesEDU and what that looked like. And a little hint here: it wasn't called Spaces or SpacesEDU for that matter. We're going to look at our August release. So this is our most recent release, and Natalie here is going to give us a live demo. And then we'll touch on subsequent releases. So what's coming next? What's coming in the future for SpacesEDU? This is where you'll also have the opportunity to step in and help us prioritize some of those future updates as well. And hopefully we have a little bit of time for any questions that come out of the session. So a little bit about our year in review, and apologies, I'm going to spit out some stats for all of us, but we have experienced quite a bit of growth. We had more than 4 million student posts over the course of the year. That's a 53% growth over the previous year. We had just over 608,000 teacher posts in the platform over the course of the year, and that was almost a 60% growth. We saw just over 34,000 curriculum tags applied to activities or posts. 31,000 activities were created over the course of the year. We had over 17,000 spaces created. And all of this led to over 1 million logins on the platform from students and teachers. So what have we been up to over the course of this year to contribute to these updates? We did experience and address 336 bugs. A lot of you probably had some say in these bugs as well too. And we launched 118 features and updates over the course of the year. So 118, that's pretty wild. And this speaks to all the information that we're getting from all of you to help contribute towards all these enhancements on the platform. And some of these updates come into us as insights or notes that the product team then catalogs and uses that information to decide on what we're building next. And that led to over 1,000 insights that we collected over the course of the year. And some of these can be very minor and some of these are quite substantial, so they're not all measured the same way, but we're always listening, and that's a testament to that fact as well. So some highlights from this year: what did we actually build? So we recently simplified our navigation. We made a series of UI changes to the platform to make it even easier for you to access what you need within the platform. We've supported the ability to reorder media attachments in posts and activities so that both students and teachers can tell the narrative that they're looking to tell within their content, and also fight a little bit of a pain point and an annoyance about not being able to reorder them. You have the ability to download the proficiency report as a CSV, so you can digest that data in a variety of other ways. We also support multiple summary statements so that we can help address your reporting periods in a better way. We have more granular reporting space controls around who and what is rendered in the final report. So you can actually select what you'd like to display in that final report. We now have support for centrally added areas of learning, making it even easier for you to start setting up your reporting space. And we now support additional supports in the reporting space so that you can provide a better indication of the supports that your students have received. You can now filter the proficiency report by subject area and grade. We've provided, I don't know how many administrators are in the crowd today, but I know that this was a major selling point for our administrators because we began supporting class management tools, and we're looking to continue building on top of that. And read receipts. We know that this was a top request for a number of our educators. So we have read receipts within messages, as well as the class engagement dashboard, providing you with more information around how engaged your students and family members are in the class. And this brings us to our proficiency-based gradebook, which is the growth book. So I'm very excited about that one, and that's one that Natalie will showcase in just a bit. So celebrating 4 years of SpacesEDU. When SpacesEDU began, it wasn't known as SpacesEDU. It wasn't even known as Spaces. And the concept of Spaces hadn't even been integrated into the product just yet. So I guess a note, as we learn about ourselves and the world around us, whether it's solving a pesky calculus problem or thinking critically about a difficult event in history, every situation prompts an opportunity to learn about who we are and how we think. This was a major tenet of this update, that a grade or a test score doesn't tell that story. Portfolios can, though. And the original product was known as My Blueprint Portfolios. Our initial focus was actually quite simple: capture the moments where growth happens. And I think that's still a statement that very much resonates today within the platform. And the hope here is that teachers would be able to create a dynamic and engaging learning environment for their students. Students would be able to tell a clear story behind their grades, and family would get a window into the classroom. So My Blueprint Portfolios would make it even easier for teachers and students to capture, communicate, and reflect on the growth that's happening in their classroom. And this became a quote almost synonymous with the product as well too. That philosophy could be still distilled into 3 focus areas: to capture, reflect, and grow. By capture, I mean supporting rich documentation, access to a variety of media, encouraging student voice and enabling them to contribute in a meaningful way to their own learning. And by reflect, teachers would be able to encourage and support students to think critically and communicate openly about their accomplishments and challenges through prompts and conversation flowing through the product. And to grow, we can see students progress in real time through their goals as they build on top of their artifacts and as they learn more throughout the class. So given the popularity of our portfolio and classroom tools, we wanted that to be a focus. We wanted to focus on those elements as an entirely new product. So the landscape of teaching was changing, and we wanted My Blueprint's products to help support that new direction. And this product would initially be made up of 3 main features or components. So let's break these down a bit. It starts with the feed. I know many of you are still very much big fans of the feed, but the class workspace, or what was later known as the feed, and you see this represented here on the right. This is where students and teachers would document all of the learning happening in the classroom and make it visible to everyone. This content would be shared with families. Teachers could filter the content to view specific students, but we had no further way to organize this content in a variety of ways, very much like Spaces. Spaces wasn't integrated at this point in time. Now, if we click that plus button at the bottom here, this is where we can begin to add media. So we supported quite a few media options at this point, whether it was pictures, videos, audio, text, and files. And then this brings us into the classroom. This is where we would provide you with the listing of all people that are sitting in the class, including students, co-teachers, and family members. And you have the ability to make edits to this group as well. This brings us to messages, or what was known in the company at the time as the chat. This is where educators could use groups or channels to communicate with large groups or bodies of students and families all at once. We also supported direct messages with students or family members. And one initial update that was praised was the ability to toggle between one and two-way messaging so that educators can decide for themselves if they'd like to engage in two-way conversations, which was something that was lacking from other products at the time. So I have a quick video I just wanted to play, I swear, just a minute, just to show you kind of that initial conception of spaces.
Okay, here we go. I'm getting. Let's try that again.
Come on, honey, just like we practiced at home. Slow and steady, kiddo.
Just keep practicing.
You'll get it next time, Lily.
That sounded great.
Keep it up. I'm so proud of you.
You've made remarkable progress.
There we go. There we go.
Every student has a story. Start capturing it with Spaces.
Okay.
And you may have noticed throughout that video that the product has evolved quite a bit over time. So we eventually updated the name to Spaces, as you saw in the video, and then eventually updated that to SpacesEDU as we began to develop the product even further based on partner feedback from leads, teachers, students, everyone in the education pipeline effectively. And the rest, so to speak, is history. And you can see here that we have built quite a bit. These are some of the feature highlights that we've incorporated over the years. And I wanted to take a brief moment before handing it off to Nat and really extend a big thank you to all of you, because we wouldn't be in this position to offer this type of product or tool to schools without your support and your belief in the product, as well as I know maybe some of you are in this very call that I've had some late nights with to showcase some new design updates, or you took time out of your busy schedule to connect with me, and it is very much appreciated. That feedback that we receive in a regular basis, we cherish that, and that really is a lifeblood for the updates that we make ongoingly in the product. So Nat, with that, I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah, do you mind if I take over the screen share there, Brian?
Go ahead.
Perfect. All right, want to make sure that we are all good here. So I'm going to take this opportunity to demo our August update, and I want to both celebrate what is new and exciting and also help you in all your navigation this fall. So I'd love to start with something that we've named Back to Basics, and I know that the name might not necessarily make this update sound like, you know, the cool kid on the block, but I can assure you that it is indeed quite slick. And as I walk you through this update, which primarily involves navigation and user interface, I'll also discuss the why behind these changes, because when we make change, it is important to know that why. So I'm going to jump off my screen share here and go into my account. So let's jump into Miss Silva's account here. And the big change that you're going to notice is that instead of being brought directly into my feed, I am brought into my Spaces tab. Now, why make this change? There was confusion with the feed. Many users thought that the feed itself was the class space because it was the first thing that they saw in SpacesEDU. The other reason is that we want to bring better awareness to the spaces that are available to our users. So sometimes users never made their way all the way to that Spaces tab, and they thought that the feed was the only option. So there's so much power, in my opinion, and I know the teachers' examples that I see, in utilizing all three space types. So we wanted to bring visibility to these space types. Now, as we talk about our visibility with Spaces as the new entry point, we want to make sure that you have the organization to support this. So thinking about organization, our class space is now a little bit brighter here up at the top. It does stand out from because this is automatically created for teachers, and if license it is sitting beside the reporting space. We now have headers on this tab to better organize your different space types. And we have renamed individual spaces to one-to-one. We think that this better captures the use case, and we're hoping that we can inspire some teachers to jump on in and make those one-to-one spaces to really capture what they can do in SpacesEDU. Now, for those that love the feed, please don't fear. It is still accessible via the Spaces tab. So right here, I have my Spaces tab here, my feed. Ta-da! It is still here, ready to go. Mine is buffering at this moment, but we do have our feed ready. And so easily accessible in the same ways. It just, it is available from the Spaces tab. Now, our other back to basic update. So if you remember here, we have assigning posts. Now we're looking at class posts, a post that goes into the class space versus one-to-one and group spaces. So if you remember, teachers were always prompted whether or not they wanted to make a post a template post or a shared post. They were tempted to always choose which one that they wanted to do. This is no longer part of the decision, but it is important for you to understand why make this change. And I am just going to actually jump into the class space to start kind of demonstrating this. We did want to simplify the posting experience for our new users, really support their onboarding experience. We do want to eliminate extra clicks, and we want to best speak to use cases for the different space types. So to showcase this, right now I'm in my class space. When I'm creating a post in the class space defaults to a shared post. So previously, if I click create and post, I would have an option down here that would be prompting me to select whether it's a shared post or a template post. In this case, it's not asking me to do this because it's defaulting to a shared post. And just to jog your memory on what a shared post is, I've created an example here. This is one post that I've created and I assigned it to all of my students. So each one of my students shares a copy of this post. And as they comment on it, we can see that each student is able to see each other's comments because I have that enabled. And each student, no matter what they do, this is their post that all students are sharing this experience on. And I'm not sure if you're into country music and maybe you do have a strong opinion on this, but was it a good idea for Post Malone to go country? If you teach middle schoolers, maybe you can ask them this question as a little opener in the beginning of the school year. I like country, so I'm good with it. Now, if we think about our one-to-one spaces, I'm going to jump into, let's say, my personal space here that I've created, our one-to-one spaces. It's for between you and your students and invited family members. Same with class space previously, when teachers wanted to go and create a post, they would click that post there and they would be prompted to select whether it's a shared post or a template post. In this case, that decision's no longer there. We're eliminating that click and really speaking to that use case. And so now teachers, when they create a post for their students and they select multiple students, each student gets their own copy of that post. What this means, and I have an example here, is I haven't done anything to Jack's post here. I created this post for Jack and for Emma. I have my explanation here. I had some of the instructions that they did. I even put a competency tag here or a curriculum tag. But then afterwards, I went in and I adjusted Emma's post. I added her example. I've added a proficiency score here. Emma has added a comment. Is any of this shown on Jack's post? Absolutely not, because it's a template post. We have this one-to-one space. This is that one-to-one post. Even if my original post was selected towards multiple students, they each get their own copy of it. Now, we have had some teachers who absolutely love the feed, and they say, oh, this is clogging my feed. And I totally understand that sentiment. What I do suggest in that case, so that if you are having a lot of template posts, is to go to individual students here. And then you're able to see their own individual feeds from across all the different spaces in SpacesEDU. Is there any questions that have come up in the chat? All right, no, we are all good. If you do have any questions as I'm doing this brief demo, please let me know. I'm happy to pivot. Okay. Let's think with our back to basics, what else is big? Assessment. So the final back to basics use case that I want to highlight is the addition of a new tab in the navigation menu. Now this tab really speaks to me as I am an assessment nerd, but it also speaks to me as I want to celebrate how easy it is for teachers to get their environment set up for assessment. So if we think about it, proficiency visibility settings right here, check. I can make sure that student family visibility is on or off. If I want to manage my tag sets, get started, which is the cornerstone of SpacesEDU, click there. I can manage and add tag sets. If I want to access my proficiency report, so I'm truly doing that competency-based assessment, I can access my proficiency report right from here. And now this is where I wish I had that walk-up music, to introduce what I consider the true cool kid of the August release. It is the growth book. So our growth book here. And so we're moving away from those back to basics here, jumping into our growth book. I do want to demo it, but just to have this in front of you on the screen is that we have our growth book is a proficiency and competency-based grade book. You can do rapid assessments, you can sync with activities, and you can filter. What makes me really excited for it though is it was such a popular request and we got it into our August release. And this is going to make so many teachers excited as they look to assess with SpacesEDU. Enough talking about it though, and let's jump on into the grade book or growth book, sorry. Okay, so our growth book here. Sometimes we are just wanting to do a rapid assessment. So it's something that you didn't do in SpacesEDU, but you want to have all your assessment, all your competencies and proficiencies all in one space. Well, this is the place to do it. So this book talk here, this was a rapid assessment. How did I create that? All I did was click entry. And in this case, I'm going to call this slam poetry investigation. So this was an investigation that it's not something that they have to show in SpacesEDU. I'm going to add some tags to it and go over to my grade 5, English Language Arts. I'm going to choose some of these at the very top. Language and text is for creativity and joy. And let's use language in creative and playful ways. So my students, part of this is they read a slam, watched or read slam poetry, and then they were able to analyze the different language that was used. Bonus points if they spell onomatopoeia correctly. So this is here, it is a rapid assessment. It's ready for me as a teacher to go on in and start assessing. I've already looked at those paragraphs that they wrote. No need to have it in SpacesEDU. I can go through and have my assessments sitting here, ready for me to be viewing at all times. Well, not at all times. We do sleep sometimes. Now, you're going to notice that we have this blue here for a rapid assessment, but then we have green here for our activity sync. And this is for someone who loves portfolios and loves demonstrating learning. It is this activity sync that makes me really excited. I'm not going to click in on this. I'm actually going to go over to my activities. And I've created an activity, but purposely I didn't sync it to my growth book because I wanted to show you how to do that. So I'm going to edit that activity as if I was creating this. Got all my details, and this is something that can definitely be shown in SpacesEDU because it's a performance, it's a reflection, it belongs in SpacesEDU. And so I have my tags here, they're ready to go. And then that final toggle that I am going to do as a teacher here is add that activity to my growth book. Super exciting. So I save those changes. And let's say I am ready to assess. I could assess this in my growth book. I could be using my quick review here to add my comments and go through and view each one. Not going to do that in front of you, but I can go in, I could do some of these assessments here. We're pretending that I am like the best grader and not being putting it off on my coffee table and carrying it back and forth from school. But I've done this assessment here. And when I pop into my growth book, we can see that that slam poetry performance is synced with the growth book. So thinking about your workflows and how important your time is, if you're doing this in SpacesEDU and celebrating that growth with visual evidence, to then go in and then have to write it separately in another growth book, we don't have time for that. So this is a way that you can really put your time together, but then organize your assessment data in one space. Organization is the name of the game for this, so I do want to point out some of these filters. For example, if you are a elementary or primary years teacher, you teach 5, 6, 7 subjects sometimes. Based on the tag sets that you have used here, you could just filter by just your English language arts tags. Or a lot of our competency-based and standards-based educators are really taking a look at certain tags, and maybe the requirement just has to do with like the overall assessment piece might have to do with buckets or the overall big idea tags. And so then you can filter by that tag type. So there's so much power in this. This data can be downloaded into a CSV, but overall, there's so much that you can do with this based on your assessment preferences. Is there any questions about the growth book? All right. Finally, and I'm not going to demo all of this, but I do want to point out some additional pieces of our August release. If your district or school uses Clever SSO for single sign-on, we now have that integration with Clever, making it easy for students to access through their portal. The class dashboard, there is a change in entry point upon login. I will showcase that. Previously, if you just had one single class, teachers were logged into their feed. Now, because we have the portfolios feature that lives outside the class, we were getting confusion with some of our portfolios users. So now when everyone logs into SpacesEDU, they are brought to that class dashboard. Curriculum goals, that term wasn't resonating with all users, so they do have a new name to resonate with all users. It's now called pinning tags. So your pinning tags to put them at the very top for easy access. You can still think of them as a goal if that's how it works for you. And then there's faster loading times for our admin accounts and those using our app. All right, Brian, I did speak a mile a minute because I wanted to make sure I was fitting in my part within a specified amount of time. But are you ready to then take over, Brian?
Yeah, I'm good to go.
Amazing. All right, I'll stop my share. I think I will.
There we go. Okay. I kept getting the warning on my end. All right, so where do we go from here after this exciting release? Where do we take SpacesEDU? And we have quite a few releases in the pipeline. We have our October, January, March, and June releases coming up. And we're going to focus on that first release for October, or as I'm coining internally, our Halloween release, because it's for October 31st. And this is a very exciting update. We're going to have attendance within the reporting space. The proficiency report is also going to include growth book entries and activity submissions. Administrators will get more visibility into who can see what within their class management table with relation to reporting spaces. And this brings us to our second growth book milestone. Now, what do all these words actually mean? Let's dive into each of them separately and walk through them. The first of which is attendance. So access to attendance data will be made available. This can be scheduled for a regular import process or manually added with data from your SIS. Once it's available, it will be rendered in the reporting space, and not just the reporting space itself, but also that PDF printout. And so you can see what that looks like here. And we're tracking absences, tardies, and totals of those figures on a monthly basis. So you can see what that looks like in the final reporting space PDF. Next up is the addition of growth book entries and activity submissions. So maybe you've perused through the proficiency report recently and you may have noticed, wait, assessment is happening in other places and not just the posts. But the proficiency report as is only rendering assessments made onto posts. Those posts can also be made up of activity submissions that are then later converted into posts, but we're missing two things here that you may have noticed either recently or previously. Activity submissions or assessments made on activity submissions before they're actually posted to their respective space are not rendered here. And the new growth book entries that you're creating and assessing within the growth book are also not rendered here. So to provide you with a more complete picture around how proficiencies are used in your classroom, we will be adding growth book entries and activity submissions into the proficiency report for October. And that for us is a super exciting update because you're going to get that complete bird's eye view of all assessment that's being used within your classroom. So there's a couple minor updates that will help you better understand those changes. But the first of which is as you normally would, and you hover over a particular cell where you can see that breakdown of information, it won't just say X number of posts, it will now say assessments. And if there are no assessments made to any posts, growth book entries, or existing activity submissions, you will see no assessments rendered here. Now, what happens if I actually click into one of these cells and you're used to seeing that feed of all that post content showcasing where all of those assessments have been made? Now, we don't actually have a frame of reference for growth book entries or activity submissions because those haven't actually been formally produced as a post. So just to make you aware of that update, you will see an update in the header just noting that, hey, there are X amount of assessments that do not have an associated post and will not appear in this view, but you'll still see a breakdown of that data. So you get all of those assessments collated in one place. So you have that reference point available. This brings us to an update within the class management table. You'll now see within your reporting space column, which is where you can access the reporting space here, and this small button in the far right will direct you into the class's reporting space. Right next to that, on the left side, you'll see a new element that will help you realize what the what the permissions look like for this particular reporting space. So you'll see what that visibility is like for students and for family members. So this, as an administrator, will give you a little bit more visibility or oversight into how the reporting spaces are used in these classrooms, as well as what's actually visible to students and family members. So you get to see that all from a snapshot within this table. Now this brings us into some exciting updates that we have within the growth book. And the first of which is the ability to assign an overall proficiency to a growth book entry or an activity. So you, as Natalie had pointed out before, the distinction between activities and growth book entries, the dark blue labels being the entries and the green ones being activities, you will now see a new column where you can provide an overall proficiency. This is something that needs to be enabled for your district. So it's something that you can connect on, see whether it will be available within your schools. But once enabled, you will see a new column where, again, you can provide that overall proficiency. And this brings us to insufficient evidence as a proficiency option. So we'll now be including insufficient evidence anywhere that you can actually apply a proficiency. And what does this actually mean? What is insufficient evidence? So if you're not ready to provide a proficiency for a student, you'll be able to label it as insufficient evidence, and you can come back to it in the future and update it accordingly. Now, this will be available in a variety of different places, not just the growth book. Though you'll see it in the growth book, you'll also see it within the activity submission view. It will now be available there. It will also be available within posts, and you can also see it rendered on the far right side here with your curriculum goals and tags panel here. Outside of that, this also brings us to well, I guess one thing I just wanted to note is that the calculations here won't actually be won't be impacted here with these new updates. So anything that is made up of average or most recent will not be impacted by insufficient evidence. Insufficient evidence is effectively a placeholder, and the other proficiencies will actually impact those calculations for average or most recent. And this brings us to probably one of my more exciting updates for this release. I know there's a lot of them, right? And it's called proficiency mode. So you may be looking at the growth book and thinking to yourself, it's a lot of work to update all these cells. It's a lot of updates to move through the table. So to help support that and help make you more efficient at using the growth book, you'll now have, or for October rather, you'll have a dedicated proficiency mode. So let's see how that works. Let's click on that proficiency mode button, and this will take us to a new view where we can actually manipulate and select these. So let's select this complete row here. So I'll select the top here, and that will select the entirety of the column. And then I can select another cell here. Oops, sorry. Before I do that, I'm actually just going to update the proficiencies here. So I'll then select extending, and I can update the entirety of the column to that specific proficiency. When I'm ready to finish here, I can just select that done button up at the top, and this will return me to that initial view. And we can see here that I've already updated the column to extending, in this case, that specific proficiency. I've done all of that in 3 clicks to update an entire column of proficiencies. You can then go in and manipulate them one by one if you'd like, but the hope here is this will expedite and speed you up and make you a little bit more efficient with the growth book. So once again, just to recap some of those updates, because there are quite a few of them, within the second growth book milestone, I should say, we have the ability to assign overall proficiency to either the assessment or the activity. We have the ability to assign insufficient evidence as a proficiency option, and this expands beyond the growth book. You'll see this available anywhere you can apply assessment. And of course, we have group actions known as a proficiency mode to help you easily update proficiencies at bulk. So what are we looking at in the future? We have quite a few updates in the pipeline that we're assessing together as a team. Now, I don't have a dedicated spot or release for these, as we're still assessing where these will sit in the future. But some of the highlights that we're working on is a dedicated presentation mode within portfolios to help students present their work to support defensive learning or other initiatives where students need to present or defend the work that they've created within their portfolios. We're looking into supporting a formal review process for administrators within the reporting space so that administrators can jump into reporting spaces and they can provide that final review or check mark to indicate to an educator that this is ready to share with family and with students, of course. We're looking into providing access to portfolios for both families and administrators, and we recognize that this is a bit of a pain point and challenge for a number of our educators, so we're looking to expand that functionality so that people have access. We're looking into measurement and reporting within portfolios. So how can we start layering in assessment within the portfolios to help better support students in cultivating a much richer portfolio to meet the needs of Portrait of a Graduate, Portrait of a Learner, or other initiatives where portfolios are being used. We're looking at a more ingrained LTI integration and rostering with Clever as well. So if you remember at the top of this session, I noted that you would help us influence the direction of our roadmap. If you can head back to Mentimeter, maybe you still have this open already. I'll leave that open on the screen for just a minute, and I'll take a look at the chat. And Melanie, you'll be able to vote on that one very, very shortly. All right. I hope all of you are logged in and good to go. All right. Please help me rank the following priorities. AI enhancements within SpacesEDU, preloaded curriculum tags for schools and classes, the ability for students to tag content with curriculum tags, read receipts and posts, family access to activities, the ability for teachers to share activities with other teachers via URLs, so the ability to share activities, the ability to add portfolio prompts within portfolios to help students create richer content in portfolios or provide more direction. We have Canvas integration and performance upgrades across the product.
Can't we just get them all, Brian?
I wish, really, I wish, folks. All right, we'll give people just another minute to add in their favorites and move them around.
Sorry, I'm just going to interject here. Melanie had a question about the attendance feature. I accidentally pressed that we would answer this live, but it is going to be included in the pro version. So if you have the reporting add-on, it would be part of that. It's not an additional fee. Thanks, Brian.
No problem. Well, you answered the question. I just gave a bit of a nod here to agree with you.
Thanks for seeing that question, Tatiana. I did not. I was distracted by my mentee and I could see it.
All right, we'll give people just one more minute. All right, I'll move us on to the next question from here. And if, again, you can help me rank the following improvements. The ability to pin posts in any space, including all settings within a single page, so simplifying all the settings that you have within your class. The ability to manipulate the order of posts within a feed, so updating the chronological order that we have in place by default. The ability to decide whether student lists are sorted by first name or last name. And the ability to see an overview of students' activity completion. I believe Chad just asked about that. So this is effectively a table or resource to provide you with status updates on activity progress. And the last one is the ability to post to multiple classrooms at the same time.
With the order of posts, Brian, in the feed, are you referring to like a filter, like filtering capabilities?
Like the ability to actually reorder. So right now,
Oh,
uh,
okay.
we have it, typically it's chronologically ordered. So the most recent
Yes.
sits at the top. We've
Mhm.
received requests to be able to manipulate that order so that they can manually push things up to the top.
All right.
Since we're asking questions about that, would that also like teachers would be able to choose if comments had been made that would then push that up to the top, or the teacher
Potentially. I mean, it's something that we haven't fully explored
wide
yet.
open spaces? I got this country Dixie chick right there.
Okay, I'll give people one more minute and then we'll move on from here. I think we're wrapping up. Okay, I'll leave this one open in case you're still ranking, but I'll move on from here. And as we're wrapping things up, I wanted to showcase a couple small things. So how can you submit a feature request? How can you send your feedback to Brian, or how can you best tap on Brian's shoulder effectively? And there's an easy way to do this. So you can head over to our SpacesEDU marketing site. And you can click on the roadmap and then submit the idea. So how do I actually do that? Let's head over to our marketing site, and we're going to scroll all the way to the very bottom, and you're going to see an access point for product roadmap. So you can click on that. And this will showcase all the updates that are coming in the pipeline. So things that we're working on where you can get some more information. You can actually click on these elements and you can provide additional notes or context for why you believe a specific update is important. But on the top right, you also have the ability to submit an idea. So if you click on this, you could then provide us with context or any use cases or ideas that you might have. This is something that I review on a weekly basis with the rest of the team, and we move things around according to the feedback that we receive. So that's the quickest way to kind of reach out directly to the product team at SpacesEDU and My Blueprint with any feedback that you have. Now, how else can you provide feedback? There is a little bubble on the website that you may have seen. It's got this little speech bubble here. You can actually click on that, and that will direct you to a success specialist where you can connect and add any notes there. You can also email your success specialist, especially if you're a leader, a district or school leader. And that is just a couple ways that you can connect with us directly and provide feedback or ideas that you may have for enhancements in the product. And that, I guess, takes us to the end. I don't know if we have any questions in the chat or anything that we wanted to
Is there some
highlight.
final results from that last mentee? Or
We can take a peek.
there we go.
One more movement. The ability to manipulate the order of posts within the feed and the activity completion overview are tied.
All right. They're gonna duke it out. Thank you
would
so
like-
much for presenting these, Bryan, and thank you everyone for sharing your ideas and continue sharing your ideas.
Thank you very much for joining today's session, everyone. I hope you have a great night and take care of yourselves. Bye now.
Thank you so much. And thanks, Tatiana.
Thanks,
See ya.
everybody. For those who stayed till the very end, appreciate you.
Yes. We appreciate it. Yes, definitely. Take care. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.